The late August sun, a generous benefactor compared to the city's stifling haze, kissed Lily's cheeks as she navigated the winding driveway to Sunny Meadow College. Rolling down the window, she inhaled the sweet scent of freshly cut grass and the earthy aroma of the surrounding woods. This was it, her new beginning. The main building, a stately edifice of red brick and ivy, stood proudly against the backdrop of a cloudless sky. Lily parked her battered Corolla, its faded blue paint a stark contrast to the manicured lawns, and took a deep breath. Excitement bubbled inside her, a potent mix of anticipation and nervous energy. As she wrestled her overstuffed tote bag from the passenger seat, a group of students strolled by, their laughter echoing through the peaceful campus. "Morning," Lily chirped, offering a bright smile. A girl with vibrant pink hair and multiple piercings grinned back. "Hey, you must be the new English professor. Welcome to the jungle." "Lily Bloom," she replied, extending a hand. "And I'm hoping it's a well-behaved jungle." The girl laughed. "Don't count on it. I'm Maya, by the way." She gestured to her companions, a lanky boy with headphones slung around his neck and a petite girl engrossed in a textbook. "This is Liam and Chloe. We're all victims. I mean, students." "Nice to meet you all," Lily said, her smile unwavering. "Well, I should probably go find my classroom." "Wish me luck." "You'll need it," Liam mumbled, barely looking up. Maya elbowed him playfully. Room 203 was smaller than she'd envisioned, the walls a drab shade of beige. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The room felt stale and neglected. Undeterred, Lily set about transforming it. First, the bulletin board. She pinned up colorful posters, showcasing classic literature quotes and quirky grammar rules, hoping to inject some personality into the sterile space. Next, she arranged the desks into a semicircle, encouraging interaction and discussion. Finally, she unpacked her collection of well-loved books, placing them on a shelf she'd cleared with a damp cloth. As she arranged her syllabus on the desk, a wave of calm washed over her. The room still needed work, but it was hers. Her space to inspire, to challenge, to nurture young minds. The bell signaling the start of class sliced through the quiet. A trickle of students began to file in, their faces a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Lily stood at the front, her heart pounding with anticipation. "Good morning, everyone. Welcome to English 101. I'm Miss Bloom, and I'm thrilled to be your instructor this semester." She scanned the room, her eyes lingering on each student. There was Maya, of course, and Liam, still sporting his headphones. But her gaze snagged on a figure in the back row. A young man with a sneer playing on his lips, his arms crossed defiantly. He radiated an unsettling aura, a silent challenge. Lily took a breath, her smile never faltering. "Let's start with introductions, shall we? Tell me your name and something you're passionate about." The students began to introduce themselves, their voices tentative at first, then gaining confidence. When it came to the young man in the back, he simply stated, "Chad," his tone laced with disdain. "And Chad," Lily pressed gently, "what are you passionate about?" He smirked. "Causing trouble." A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the room. Lily met his gaze, her own unwavering. "Well, Chad," she said, her voice firm but kind, "I'm passionate about helping you channel that energy into something productive." The bell rang, signaling the end of the period. As the students gathered their belongings, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the precipice of something significant, something unpredictable. Sunny Meadow might be idyllic on the surface, but beneath the veneer of tranquility, a storm was brewing, and she, it seemed, was about to be caught in the middle. The bruiser arrives. The sonnet was breathing. Miss Lily could feel it, taste the rhythm of the iambic pentameter on her tongue as she explained the volta, the subtle shift in thought that Shakespeare so masterfully employed. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the lecture hall, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, rebellious spirits. She almost had the class understanding the sheer, elegant power of the form. Then came the crash. A chair screeched back with violent force, followed by a cacophony of clattering books and a low, guttural laugh that seemed to claw its way up from the depths of someone's throat. Every head in the room swiveled toward the source. Leaning back precariously in his chair, legs splayed, was a figure built like a brick outhouse. Brad Miller. Ms. Lilly recognized him instantly from the college yearbook photo she'd glanced at that morning. He was bigger than she'd imagined, a hulking mass of muscle barely contained by his too small football jersey. His face, framed by close-cropped, dark hair, was a mask of bored disdain. "Professor Bloom, was it?" he drawled, the name dripping with mock politeness. "Mind if I add a little spice to this poetry reading?" He punctuated the word spice with a wet, exaggerated smack of his lips. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the room. Ms. Lilly swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. "Mr. Miller, I presume? I would appreciate it if you would refrain from interrupting the lesson." Her voice trembled slightly, a tremor she desperately hoped no one noticed. He grinned, a flash of white teeth that looked predatory in the afternoon light. "Interrupting? Nah, just participating. This Shakespeare guy sounds kind of fruity, don't you think? All that shall I compare thee nonsense." He mimicked a limp wrist, earning more snickers from his cronies in the back row. "Shakespeare is considered one of the greatest writers in the English language," Ms. Lilly said, her voice gaining a little steel. "And his work explores complex themes of love, loss, and mortality." "Mortality, huh? Sounds depressing. I prefer themes like tackling and touchdowns." He flexed a bicep, the muscle bulging obscenely. "Maybe you should teach us about that, Professor. I'm an expert." He turned his attention to a student in the front row, a petite girl with bright pink hair who was diligently taking notes. "Hey, Rainbow Bright," he called out, his voice booming across the room. "You actually understanding this crap? Or are you just drawing unicorns in your notebook?" The girl's face flushed crimson. Ms. Lilly felt a surge of anger, a protective instinct she hadn't known she possessed. "Mr. Miller, that's enough. Your behavior is disrespectful and inappropriate." He chuckled, a low rumble that vibrated through the floor. "Disrespectful? Maybe. Inappropriate? Definitely. But hey, at least I'm keeping things interesting. This class was about to put me to sleep." He leaned back further in his chair, the legs creaking ominously. "Besides," he added, with a glint in his eye, "what are you going to do about it? Pranks and patience." The smooth black chalkboard mocked Lilly with its emptiness. She patted her tote bag, rummaged through the inner pockets. Nothing. Chalk. Gone. A wave of frustration, quickly suppressed, washed over her. She'd specifically bought a box of vibrant, dustless chalk, eager to bring the poetry of Tennyson to life with colorful annotations. Now, she just felt exposed. "Anyone seen the chalk?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral, scanning the classroom. A few heads shook, some offered blank stares. Brad and his usual entourage exchanged smirks that didn't quite reach their eyes. He was slumped low in his chair, practically daring her to call him out. Lilly sighed internally. This was precisely the kind of thing she'd hoped to avoid. "All right," she said, forcing a smile. "No problem. I'm sure I can find some in the supply closet." The supply closet, however, yielded nothing but dusty textbooks and a lone, half-eaten granola bar. Resigned, she returned to the classroom, grabbing a piece of regular chalk from a student's desk. "Okay, let's get started," she announced, and began writing, "The Lady of Shalott" on the board. 20 minutes into the lecture, as she reached for her stapler to hand out a worksheet on symbolism, she found it firmly glued to the surface of her desk. A thin, almost invisible line of adhesive ran along the base, trapping it in place. A stifled giggle erupted from the back row. Lily's face flushed. She took a deep breath. "Excuse me for one moment," she said, her voice tighter than she intended. She walked to the back of the classroom, stopping directly in front of Brad. He avoided her gaze, pretending to examine his fingernails. "Is there something you'd like to share with the class, Brad?" she asked, her voice low and controlled. He mumbled something unintelligible. "Speak up, please." "Nah, just bored," he said, finally meeting her eyes with a defiant glint. "Boredom can be a powerful motivator," Lilly said, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Perhaps you could channel that energy into analyzing the Lady of Shalott's isolation. I'm sure you have plenty of insightful observations to offer." He scoffed and looked away. As Lilly turned to walk back to her desk, A chorus of bird calls and monkey noises filled the room. She heard Maya Rodriguez, usually so quiet, mutter, "Grow up, Brad." Lily glanced at Maya, catching a flicker of anger in her usually gentle eyes. It gave her a sliver of hope. Maybe she wasn't alone in this after all. She pulled the stapler free with a sharp tug, leaving a chunk of wood behind. "All right," she announced, her voice amplified, cutting through the childish din. "Let's talk about the curse." She pointed to the line on the board. "She knows not what the curse may be. What does it mean to live under a curse you can't define? What are the consequences of ignorance?" She locked eyes with Brad. "Let's explore that." The dumpster plot. The stench of mystery meat wafted from the cafeteria, clinging to the air like a stubborn ghost. Maya navigated the crowded hallway, hugging her textbooks to her chest. The lunch rush was always a gauntlet. As she rounded the corner near the overflowing recycling bins, she heard Brad's booming voice. "So, here's the deal," he was saying, his voice low but carrying. "After she leaves the gym, we corner her by the dumpster. Quick and clean. In and out." Maya slowed, her heart doing a nervous flutter kick against her ribs. Brad was surrounded by his usual crew, hulking Derek with his permanent smirk and skinny Kyle, always eager to please. They were huddled close, a conspiracy practically radiating off them. "You sure about this, Brad?" Kyle whined, picking at a loose thread on his worn Letterman jacket. "Principal Thompson's been sniffing around lately." "Relax, Kyle," Brad scoffed. "He's too busy polishing his bald spot to notice anything. Besides," he lowered his voice even further, "she deserves it. Showing us up in class like that? No way." Maya knew instantly who they were talking about. Ms. Lily, the new history teacher. She'd only been at Northwood High for a few weeks, but she'd already made an impression. Maya actually liked her. Ms. Lily had a way of making history feel alive, and she wasn't afraid to challenge Brad and his cronies when they acted out. Derek cracked his knuckles, the sound like dry twigs snapping. "I'm in. It'll be hilarious." Maya felt a cold knot tightening in her stomach. She wanted to walk away, pretend she hadn't heard anything. But the image of Ms. Lily, small and determined, flashed in her mind. She couldn't just stand by. But what could she do? She, Maya Rodriguez, invisible wallflower, against Brad and his goons. She slipped behind a vending machine, her breath catching in her throat. She could see them through the gaps in the machine. Brad clapped Derek on the back. "All right, let's go. Jim's that way. Kyle, you keep lookout." They swaggered off, leaving Kyle fiddling with his phone, his eyes darting nervously around the hallway. Maya waited until they were out of sight, then cautiously emerged from behind the vending machine. The metallic tang of the soda cans filled her nostrils. She had to warn Ms. Lily. But how? Later, the air outside the gym crackled with a different kind of tension. Shadows stretched long and distorted as the sun began its descent. Brad and Derek leaned against the brick wall, feigning nonchalance. Brad spat on the ground. "She's taking her sweet time," he muttered. Derek chuckled. "Patience, buddy. The payoff will be worth it." He adjusted the strap of his backpack, a clear sign he was more nervous than he let on. From behind a towering oak tree, Maya watched them. The leaves rustled around her, whispering secrets she couldn't decipher. She tried to find Ms. Lily, but the teacher had disappeared after class. Now all she could do was wait, a silent sentinel in the gathering gloom. She pulled her jacket tighter around her, the autumn chill seeping into her bones. The dumpster loomed in the background, a dark and gaping maw. Cornered, the bell's chime still echoed faintly as Lily navigated the throng of students spilling from the lecture halls. Her first day jitters had mostly subsided, replaced by a pleasant exhaustion. Room 210 wasn't exactly Carnegie Hall, but her lecture on romantic poetry had gone surprisingly well. Now, a quick workout in the campus gym was all that stood between her and a well-deserved cup of tea. She cut through the back of the English department, the narrow path leading toward the athletic complex. The air thickened as she neared the service entrance, the faint scent of jasmine giving way to something less appealing. Garbage day, apparently. She wrinkled her nose, quickening her pace. Well, look what we have here." The voice, laced with an irritatingly smug tone, made Lily halt. 3 figures blocked her path, a human barricade constructed of oversized hoodies and sneering faces. The leader, she recognized from her morning class, Brad, if she recalled correctly. The one who'd spent more time admiring his biceps than absorbing Wordsworth. "Afternoon, gentlemen," Lily said, her voice even. "Is there something I can help you with?" Brad chuckled, a grating sound. "We just wanted to welcome you to good old Oak Haven, Professor Bloom. Make sure you feel at home." His two companions mirrored his smirk, their eyes glinting with a predatory light. Lily's stomach clenched. This wasn't a friendly welcome wagon. She scanned her surroundings. The path was deserted, the only sounds the distant rumble of traffic and the squawking of a nearby crow. Behind her, the English department. Ahead, Brad and his goons. "I appreciate the sentiment," she said, keeping her voice steady despite the rising panic. "But I really must be going." She attempted to step past them, but Brad shifted, blocking her way. "Not so fast, Professor. We have a little initiation ceremony planned." He gestured towards the overflowing dumpster, its contents a chaotic jumble of coffee cups, crumpled papers, and half-eaten sandwiches. The stench was overpowering. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. The realization dawned, sharp and sickening. This wasn't just petty bullying, this was deliberate intimidation. Her hand instinctively tightened around the strap of her messenger bag. "I think you've mistaken me for someone who appreciates sophomoric pranks, Brad," she said, her voice hardening. "Now, if you'll excuse me." He took another step closer, his face looming inches from hers. "Oh, I don't think so, Professor. We wouldn't want you to get the wrong impression of Oak Haven. We're just trying to show you how things work around here." He nodded towards the dumpster again, his grin widening. "Consider it a baptism." The two figures flanking Brad moved forward, their shadows engulfing her. The metallic tang of fear filled Lily's mouth. She was cornered. Karate surprise. Brad's meaty hand clamped onto Miss Lily's upper arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "All right, teach. Field trip. Destination, sanitation." A snicker rippled through his little pack of hyenas. Todd, ever the eager-to-please second-in-command, had already wrestled the dumpster lid open, the metallic clang echoing across the deserted quad. Miss Lily's breath hitched. Her eyes, wide and the color of forget-me-nots, darted around, searching for an escape. The stack of papers clutched in her hands trembled. Brad gave her a rough shove. She stumbled, the sweet scent of her perfume, something floral and light, momentarily masking the stench emanating from the dumpster's gaping maw. "Come on, Bloom," Brad sneered, tightening his grip. "Don't be a crybaby. It's just a little dip." He pushed again, harder this time. Miss Lily gasped, teetering on the edge. The dumpster loomed, promising a fragrant cocktail of week-old cafeteria leftovers and discarded homework. Just when Brad thought he'd achieved peak humiliation, something shifted. It was subtle, a barely perceptible change in Miss Lily's posture. The fear that had glazed her eyes seemed to sharpen into something else entirely. The trembling in her hands ceased. Then, faster than anyone could have anticipated, she moved. It wasn't a flailing, desperate attempt to break free. It was precise. Her body rotated with a snap, a blur of tweed and nervous energy transforming into focused power. One moment she was being shoved, the next, her leg was a piston, driving upwards in a perfect crescent arc. A collective gasp went up from Brad's cronies. Brad himself barely registered the movement before a searing pain exploded in his solar plexus. The air rushed from his lungs in a whoosh. His grip on Miss Lily vanished. He doubled over, clutching his stomach, the world tilting sideways. Miss Lily landed lightly, her tweed skirt swirling around her. The papers she'd been holding lay scattered on the ground like fallen leaves. She stood tall, her gaze now fixed on Brad, who was still struggling to breathe. The sweet floral scent seemed to have vanished, replaced by a sudden, palpable tension in the air. Todd and Kevin, Brad's usual accomplices, stood frozen, their mouths agape. The open dumpster seemed to mock them, a gaping maw of their own failed bravado. They hadn't expected this. Nobody had expected this. Brad, finally managing to draw a ragged breath, straightened up, his face contorted in a mixture of pain and disbelief. What was that?" he wheezed, his voice cracking. Miss Lily simply raised an eyebrow, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. "Let's just say," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, I have a few unconventional methods for dealing with disrespectful students. She bent down to gather her scattered papers, her movements now fluid and confident. The terror had vanished, replaced by an aura of quiet authority. The quad felt suddenly colder, the silence broken only by Brad's labored breathing and the rustle of papers in the wind. The field trip, it seemed, had been cancelled. Matman's humiliation. The smell of industrial cleaner hung thick in the air as Lily navigated the maze of hallways towards the faculty lounge. Her sensible shoes squeaked on the linoleum, a stark contrast to the pounding bass emanating from the gymnasium she was passing. Just her luck. It sounded like a frat party had relocated indoors. As she rounded a corner, a wall of testosterone materialized in front of her. Brad, the quarterback, his blonde hair aggressively gelled, stood flanked by two hulking figures she recognized from the football team. He smirked, a predatory glint in his eyes. Well, Brad drawled, blocking her path. Look what the cat dragged in. Fresh meat for the English department. Lily swallowed, her earlier confidence wavering. Excuse me, she said, attempting to sidestep him. Brad's arm shot out, barring her way. Where do you think you're going, Teach? We just wanted to offer you a warm welcome. His friends snickered, their eyes raking over her. Lily felt a flush creep up her neck. She'd anticipated awkwardness, maybe some skepticism about her youth, but not this outright hostility. I really don't have time for this, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Brad stepped closer, invading her personal space. Oh, I think you do. Wouldn't want to disappoint your students, would you? That was it. The fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, focused calm. She'd spent years honing her reflexes, her instincts. This wasn't some philosophical debate she could dissect and analyze. This was a physical threat. In a fluid motion that surprised even her, she executed a swift leg sweep. Brad, caught completely off guard, yelped as his feet flew out from under him. His friends, reacting too slowly, stumbled over him like bowling pins. They crashed in a heap, not onto the unforgiving hallway floor, but into a stack of brightly colored gym mats someone had carelessly left leaning against the wall. The air whooshed out of them as they landed with a muffled thud, a tangled mess of limbs and indignant grunts. Lily straightened, her heart pounding in her chest, but her face betraying nothing. She saw a handful of students near the water fountain staring, their mouths agape. One of them, a girl with vibrant purple hair, started to giggle. The giggle escalated into full-blown laughter, quickly joined by the others. Brad, his face contorted with rage and humiliation, struggled to disentangle himself from the mats. His friends, equally mortified, helped him up, their faces scarlet. Lily didn't wait to see their next move. She turned on her heel and walked briskly away, the sound of their sputtering rage and the students' laughter echoing behind her. By lunchtime, the story had spread like wildfire. Matman's humiliation, they were calling it. Lily heard whispers as she navigated the cafeteria line, saw knowing glances exchanged between students. She even caught a glimpse of a college president, Dr. Thompson, suppressing a smile as she passed him in the hallway. The initial fear had morphed into a strange mixture of relief and disbelief. She had defended herself, and in doing so, had inadvertently become a legend at least for the day. But she knew, with a sinking feeling, that this was just the beginning. Brad wouldn't let this go. A change of heart, now christened Matman. A moniker that stung with every utterance, Brad charted routes specifically to avoid the English department. He'd rather face Professor Stern's lacerating critiques in calculus than another encounter with Ms. Lily's disconcertingly gentle gaze. But avoidance was a privilege denied. The lifeline of his scholarship was dependent on maintaining good grades, and failure in Bloom's class threatened everything. Resigned, he slipped into her subsequent lecture, choosing a rear seat, hoping to fade into the aged backdrop of peeling paint and discarded textbooks. Ms. Lily, however, possessed a seemingly omniscient perception. She greeted him with a subtle, almost imperceptible nod, a gesture that sent a tremor of unease down his spine. The lecture itself proved surprisingly captivating. Her topic of the day was symbolism in poetry. Despite his resistance, Brad found himself intrigued. The cadence of her voice, a soothing, almost musical quality, rendered even the most intricate metaphors accessible. He noticed, perhaps for the first time, how sunlight illuminated the golden threads interwoven into her dark shawl. Lost in thought, he was absent-mindedly sketching in his notebook, a relic of years spent disengaging from tedious instruction, when Miss Lily paused. Her gaze drifted across the room before fixing, unmistakably, on him. "Mr. Brad, is it not? What insights do you have regarding the significance of the raven in Poe's poem?" A wave of heat surged through him. He stammered, "It's like a dark thing? And sad, I guess." A warm, encouraging smile graced Miss Lily's features. "Dark and sad," agreed. "But consider the raven's associations. Prophecy, knowledge, or perhaps the speaker's own spiral into madness. What do you perceive, Brad?" He hesitated, gnawing on the end of his pen. He'd actually been pondering the poem. He blurted out, "Maybe it's less about the raven possessing some inherent wisdom and more about the guy projecting his own anxieties onto it. He's making the raven carry his fears." A low murmur rippled through the classroom. From the periphery, he caught Maya Rodriguez, typically engrossed in her notes, offering a small, surprised nod. Miss Lily's eyes brightened. "Precisely, Brad. A remarkably insightful interpretation. Projecting his fears. Excellent. Let's delve into that further." As students filed out after class, Miss Lily beckoned him forward. He steeled himself for a reprimand, an apology, or something equally unpredictable. "Brad," she said, her tone gentle, "your contribution today was remarkably astute. I see considerable potential within you. Have you ever considered channeling some of that energy into a more productive avenue?" He scoffed quietly. "Like what?" "Reciting rhymes." "Perhaps," she countered, unperturbed. "Or might I suggest martial arts? The community center offers a reputable program. It provides an excellent means of focusing that intensity." He stared, bewildered. There was no anger, no mockery. Instead, she was offering him a way out, an alternative to being solely defined as Matt Man. As he walked away, an unfamiliar sensation settled within him. It wasn't guilt, precisely. More akin to a nascent possibility taking root. He glanced back. Ms. Lily was assisting Maya Rodriguez, both of them smiling. For the first time in a long while, Brad felt a spark ignite within him. Hope. From bully to protector. Brad stood awkwardly at the doorway of Ms. Lily's office, the fluorescent lights humming a nervous tune. He'd practiced the apology 100 times, but the words still felt clumsy in his mouth. The scent of lavender hung in the air, a stark contrast to the stench of the dumpster he'd forced her into. "Miss Bloom," he mumbled, his voice a shade above a whisper. Lily looked up from grading papers, her expression unreadable. "Brad, what can I do for you?" He took a deep breath. I wanted to apologize. For what happened. It was wrong and I'm really sorry." The words tumbled out, a jumbled mess of remorse. Lily watched him, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that." She paused, then added, "I hope this means you'll be treating all your classmates with respect as well." Brad nodded fervently. "Yes, ma'am. Absolutely." He shifted his weight. "Is there anything else I can do to make it up to you?" "Actually," Lily said, a thoughtful look in her eye, "there's a self-defense club that meets on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Perhaps you could consider joining? Use your physicality for something constructive." The suggestion hung in the air. Brad hadn't considered anything like that. He'd always used a size for intimidation, not protection. But something about Lily's steady gaze made him reconsider. "Okay," he said, surprised by his own agreement. "I'll check it out." The self-defense club was a revelation. Brad, used to throwing his weight around, found himself learning discipline and control. He was a natural, his raw strength honed by precise movements and strategic thinking. He excelled, earning the respect of the instructor and his fellow students. One evening, leaving the gym, he saw a smaller student cornered by 2 upperclassmen known for their aggressive behavior. Without thinking, Brad stepped in. "Hey, leave him alone," he growled, his voice low and menacing. The bullies, surprised by his intervention, backed down, muttering threats as they retreated. The smaller student, visibly shaken, thanked him profusely. Word spread quickly. Brad, the former tormentor, was now a protector. He found himself intervening in petty squabbles, defusing tense situations with a word or a look. Sunny Meadow College began to feel a little safer, a little kinder. Weeks later, after class, Maya Rodriguez lingered, a rare occurrence for the usually focused student. "Brad," she said, "that point you made about the symbolism in The Great Gatsby was insightful." "I didn't expect that." Brad shrugged, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Just trying to pay attention, you know." He saw Miss Lily standing by the window watching them. He caught her eye, and she offered a small, genuine smile. He nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the distance they'd traveled. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Maybe, just maybe, he could change. Maybe he could become someone worthy of that smile.